It seems like every few weeks a new and major recall is announced. General Motors just last week recalled over 740,000 new cars due to malfunctioning daytime running lights. And just a couple of weeks ago, Ford recalled more than 500,000 vehicles due to a fire risk. And just this week, Stellantis, the company behind brands like Alfa Romeo and Dodge, sent out a memo urging vehicle owners to get their Takata airbag issue addressed because of a death related to the issue. This is despite the fact that the Takata airbag recall has been around for years and a remedy has been available for a long time. And yet people are still dying because of this recall. It seems as though recalls are happening more and more frequently, which of course then begs the question, are cars just not built like they used to be? But in order to really answer that question properly, we have to not only look at the data, but we also have to look at the reasons as to why recalls have in fact increased. Because no, it's not your imagination, we actually have seen an increase in recalls over the years. But before we dive into that, I do want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, FlexiSpot. As a content creator who works 12 to 15-hour days, I spend a lot of time at my desk working on my computer. And after years of doing this, I was finding myself with a sore back and was having trouble concentrating throughout the day. That was until I started using a standing desk like the FlexiSpot adjustable height desk. The FlexiSpot adjustable height desk is a desk that can adjust from sitting to standing at just the press of a button, and it is a complete game changer when it comes to your productivity and comfort throughout a long workday. All FlexiSpot desks feature an easy-to-access keypad that allows for you to adjust between heights effortlessly. You can also save up to 3 different height settings, allowing for you to conveniently switch between modes without having to worry about what your perfect setting is for standing versus sitting. Each desk is fully customizable based off of your color and size preferences, and features a sturdy construction with quiet, smooth motors to switch between different modes. I've been using a standing desk for over a year now, and it is one of the best investments I've ever made for not only my productivity but my health, and I will never go back to sitting 15 hours per day. FlexiSpot offers a wide variety of products for every work setup, and being as though the holidays are right around the corner, we want to know what you think. Leave a comment on which FlexiSpot product you'd like for Christmas, and FlexiSpot will be choosing one commenter who'll be getting a free gift from FlexiSpot themselves. Thank you, FlexiSpot, for sponsoring this video. Millions of vehicles get recalled every single year. And interestingly enough, of the millions of recalls that are announced each and every year, nearly half of them come from just 4 companies. And these companies include Volkswagen, Chrysler, Ford Motor Company, as well as Mercedes. And though these manufacturers are the manufacturers with the most recalls as far as sheer volume goes, they aren't the only manufacturers that have been plagued with problems. For example, this year, Rivian had nearly every single one of their vehicles ever produced recalled due to concerns of components not being properly torqued down to spec. And Tesla had a number of minor recalls throughout the year and is currently being investigated for a phantom braking issue. The fact of the matter is, recalls are plaguing the automotive industry, and it's costing manufacturers billions of dollars per year. And from a consumer's perspective, recalls can be extremely frustrating because it makes the average consumer feel like they're being used as quality control, rather than having vehicles tested by the manufacturer properly before delivery. And while recalls are free to address, they are inconvenient, and they can oftentimes result in lower consumer confidence in a brand. But why have we seen an increase in recalls in recent years, and what does this mean for the vehicle manufacturer? Well, an important factor in the increase in recalls that we've seen over the years actually doesn't have anything to do with a lower quality product, and instead it has to do with an increase in standard for vehicles that are on the road. I like to compare this increase in safety standard to the evolution of the baby car seat. If you look at car seats from 50 years ago, it's almost hard to wrap your mind around the fact that we once put infants in these seats and drove around town. And this mindset is certainly true with not only features within cars like child safety seats, but it's also true with the cars themselves. I look at my car, which is a 1997 Toyota 4Runner, and the safety features in my car compared to a newer 2022 Toyota 4Runner is drastically different. And what would pass for safety standards 5, 10, 20 years ago just simply doesn't fly anymore. Our expectations for safety in vehicles is much, much higher and has resulted in more scrutiny on behalf of the NHTSA. But it's not just the NHTSA, which is the organization that oversees recalls, that is putting more scrutiny on vehicles on a day-to-day basis. There's also been an increase in scrutiny from us, the consumer. Our expectations for our vehicles are higher as well, and with social media and the internet, it's much easier to report vehicle issues to the manufacturers, dealerships, and the NHTSA, which has in turn led to more recalls. And while an increase in safety standard, as well as more scrutiny behind the vehicles that we drive, are certainly valid and legitimate reasons as to why we've seen an increase in recalls, it actually isn't the only reason. Because while these factors are absolutely at play, we can't ignore the fact that vehicle safety statistics are trending in the wrong direction. In fact, though the data isn't complete and released for 2022 yet, in the first part of 2022, we saw an increase in automobile fatalities compared to the same time period in 2021. And while we certainly can't blame this increase entirely on factors controlled by the manufacturer, it's something that is being examined by the NHTSA, the Biden administration, and vehicle manufacturers. And there are some very valid arguments that this is in fact something that needs to be investigated. Because one thing I oftentimes hear in the comment section of my video is basically the comment that vehicles just simply aren't made like they used to be, and vehicle quality is going down year after year. And according to a recent study done by J.D. Power, this is actually true, and vehicle quality has hit a 36-year low. One of the ways in which quality control is measured by a third party here in the United States is by looking at tens of thousands of different vehicles that were sold or leased this year. So in this year, in 2022, this was done by looking at 2022 year model vehicles that were either purchased or leased. And of these tens of thousands of vehicles that get surveyed, it gets logged how many of these vehicles have reported problems. This is reported in problems per 100 vehicles. And the data for 2022 has shown an increase of 11%, meaning vehicle quality has declined in 2022 compared to 2021. In addition to this study showing that cars have in fact decreased in quality in present day compared to previous years, it also showed that electric vehicles have more problems compared to gas vehicles. Which I suppose isn't super shocking given the fact that electric vehicles are new and to a degree are still working out their kinks, but it is still interesting nonetheless. And when the question is asked, why has vehicle quality degraded in recent years, vehicle manufacturers more often than not blame it on the supply chain. Which, I don't know about you, but I don't know if that answer makes me feel any better. Essentially, supply chain issues from manufacturing problems to shortages to semiconductor chips, issues related by the pandemic is what is being blamed for vehicle quality control to be lower and why owners of 2022 model year vehicles are reporting more problems compared to previous years. And so no, it's not in your head. Vehicle quality control actually has gone down. And though this isn't the only reason why we've seen an increase in recalls over the years, it certainly is one of the factors. Though I know that the biggest question I ask myself whenever I hear that vehicle quality is in fact declining is the question of, will vehicles last us 10, 20, 30 years? I mentioned earlier that I daily drive a 1997 Toyota 4Runner. This car is 25 years old and it still runs extremely well. And I have to wonder, are the days of being able to daily drive a 25-year-old car almost over? If not long gone already? And to be honest, I don't think really any of us know the answer to that question. I think that we're in a weird spot as far as the automotive industry goes, because while new cars have gotten more and more expensive, the quality of these same new cars have gotten lower and lower. And sure, many of these issues are relatively minor, and in some cases, maybe the NHTSA should and needs to reevaluate what is actually considered a recall. For example, should a recall that can be addressed and fixed with an over-the-air update really be considered a recall? I don't know. But we can't ignore the fact that we as consumers are paying a higher premium price for what is essentially a lower quality product. And I predict that this is at some point going to come to a head, where either manufacturers are going to begin to better quality check their vehicles before the customer takes delivery, or some government agency like the NHTSA will force them to do it. Because you look at a new manufacturer like Rivian, for example, and Rivian doesn't have the dealership networks that companies like Ford and GM have. And as a result, though their recall earlier this year was relatively minor, it was a massive inconvenience for some customers, and it can have some pretty long-term ramifications. And sure, in the case of Rivian, the repair just took a few minutes. But what happens if a company like Rivian, who doesn't have the dealership networks and is a newer manufacturer, has a recall that results in the need of loaner vehicles? This is a true disaster waiting to happen. I think that we're on the cusp of real change in the way in which recalls are addressed from not only a manufacturer standpoint, but also a government standpoint as well. Because in many ways, consumers are viewed as a form of quality control of the vehicle, which absolutely shouldn't be the case. And sure, in many ways, the increase in recalls that we've seen are in fact due to higher standards and better testing. But we can't ignore the fact that this is also a result of the general quality of newer cars going downhill as well. And while many, if not all manufacturers are going to blame the pandemic for this decline in quality that we've seen, the real question is, how long will that excuse actually hold up for? And how long will we as consumers accept it? But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.